Imagine losing your kingdom at the age when most people are still learning how to rule, being chased by enemies on all sides, sleeping in mountains, starving in deserts, and yet dreaming of conquering one of the richest lands on earth. This is not a legend. This is history, the story of Babur, a young prince who had almost nothing, but whose ambition, intelligence, and courage would change India forever and give birth to the mighty Mughal Empire. Babur's story begins in the year 1483 in the small Central Asian kingdom of Fergana, present-day Uzbekistan, where he was born as Zahir-ud-Din Muhammad Babur, a descendant of two great conquerors, Timur on his father's side and Genghis Khan on his mother's. Yet despite this powerful lineage, Babur's life was filled not with luxury, but with constant struggle. At just 12 years old, after the sudden death of his father, Babur became the ruler of Fergana. But ruling at such a young age in a land surrounded by enemies was extremely dangerous, and soon his own relatives and rival warlords began plotting against him. Babur's greatest dream was to capture Samarkand, the legendary city of his ancestors, and he did manage to conquer it briefly, but he could not hold it for long, because while he focused on Samarkand, he lost Fergana, leaving him without a kingdom, without resources, and constantly on the run. For years, Babur wandered through harsh landscapes, facing betrayal, hunger, and defeat, often sleeping in the open cold with his soldiers, yet never giving up his belief that destiny had chosen him for greatness. After repeated failures in Central Asia, Babur realized a painful truth. He could not reclaim his ancestral lands because powerful enemies like the Uzbeks had become too strong, and this forced him to look elsewhere for survival and opportunity. In 1504, Babur captured Kabul, which finally gave him a stable base, but Kabul was poor and could not support his growing ambitions or army. It was from Kabul that Babur began to look toward India, a land he had heard about through traders and travelers, described as unimaginably rich, fertile, and politically divided. At that time, India was ruled by the Delhi Sultanate under Ibrahim Lodi, a ruler who had many enemies within his own kingdom, including nobles and governors who were unhappy with his harsh rule, and some of them secretly invited Babur to invade India, seeing him as a tool to remove Ibrahim Lodi from power. Babur did not rush blindly into invasion. He carefully studied India's geography, climate, and political situation, and most importantly, he understood that traditional Indian armies relied heavily on war elephants and large numbers, while his strength lay in speed, discipline, and a revolutionary weapon, gunpowder artillery. When Babur finally marched into India in 1526, his army was far smaller than Ibrahim Lodi's massive force, but it was better organized and technologically advanced. The decisive moment came at the First Battle of Panipat, where Babur used cannons, matchlock guns, and a brilliant defensive strategy involving carts tied together with ropes, creating a mobile fortress that stopped the enemy cavalry and elephants. Ibrahim Lodi's forces, unfamiliar with artillery, panicked under the thunder of cannons, and despite their numbers, they were completely defeated, with Ibrahim Lodi himself killed on the battlefield. This single battle ended the Delhi Sultanate and marked the beginning of Mughal rule in India. However, Babur's conquest did not end at Panipat, because India was not an easy land to rule, and many powerful Rajput rulers refused to accept him as their king. The greatest challenge came from Rana Sanga of Mewar, one of the most respected and courageous warriors of India, who united several Rajput clans to drive Babur out. In the Battle of Kanwa in 1527, Babur once again faced a much larger army, and knowing that defeat could destroy everything he had built, he motivated his soldiers by declaring the war a sacred struggle and personally leading from the front. Using artillery, trenches, and disciplined formations, Babur defeated Rana Sanga's army, breaking the strongest resistance to Mughal rule and securing his position in northern India. Despite being a conqueror, Babur was not a cruel tyrant. He was a deeply thoughtful man who loved poetry, gardens, nature, and writing, and he recorded his life honestly in his autobiography, the Babur Nama, where he openly wrote about his failures, fears, and regrets. He often expressed sadness about leaving his homeland and never truly felt at home in India's climate, yet he understood that this land was now the future of his dynasty. Babur ruled India for only 4 years, but in that short time he laid the foundation of an empire that his successors, Humayun, Akbar, Jahangir, Shah Jahan, and Aurangzeb, would expand into one of the greatest empires in world history. In 1530, Babur fell seriously ill, and according to legend, he prayed to God to take his life instead of his son's Humayun's, who was also gravely sick. And soon after Humayun recovered, Babur passed away, leaving behind not just a kingdom, but a legacy built on resilience, intelligence, and vision. Babur's journey from a homeless prince in Central Asia to the founder of the Mughal Empire in India is a powerful reminder that history is often shaped not by those who start with everything, but by those who refuse to give up when they have nothing.